high achievements and popularity lead to self-esteem. You are amongst the most popular and high-achieving teens in the world, so you must be riding high.
But as Marsh and Ayotti pointed out, it can be vice versa. I really haven't achieved anything. We're still hurtling towards a 1.5 degree rise in global temperature. All I've done is talk to as many people as I can and live as carbon neutral life as I can.
Yeah, and as we know, you grew up in a small town in Sweden. How much do you think that affects your reasoning?
Of course, it has been a major influence on my diversity of reasoning. My culture is respectful, and we bring our own bags to the grocery store. We are IKEA and Volvo and the Nobel Committee with shoes off at the front door. We have strong moral codes within our society, and that has influenced me too. Cooperation is the fundamental drive of moral behaviour from infancy, and it seems that the world isn't cooperating very much nowadays. The moral reasoning of children is better developed, less corrupt than an adult. Additionally, adolescents, unlike children, are more likely to make reference to fair competition. Maybe that's why I don't think our future is fair. Generations have plundered the earth, and it's my generation that has to fix it.
Oh, it really illustrates diverse reasoning. It's amazing how you can analyse things like that. But tell me, Greta, how do you deal with groups? When you were younger, was it a strain?
Well, as I've mentioned, I've been trying to understand normal for a long time now. Groups change things. You don't really know someone until you have seen them in a group.
Well, how do you mean? Isn't it plain and simple?
No, it's patterned and complex. Different dynamics are in play depending on how well the group knows each other, and it depends on the motivations of the individuals within the group. If your Maslow hierarchy of needs has been met, people are usually interesting, but that takes time. First, groups have to form, everyone has to check each other out, then people seem to argue about complete rubbish, stress at each other and feel put upon, until they arrive at the norming stage where not much is surprising anymore and people have learned to cope. I had a teacher who showed me the stages of group processes, and she actually showed me many things, including the state of the biosphere. Her name was Saskia. When the class first met, she would play lots of interactive games and didn't overload us too much with work. This was good because we were shy and didn't know each other. I learnt later that this was the forming stage and was precursor to the losing the plot storming stage. Saskia would help then by letting us see how things should be and kept an eye out for us. Some girls can say the most terrible of things. She would work with us on group responsibilities and later let us sort out our own squabbles. She was amazing in many ways, and when the group started performing, we shone like stars because she would create positive groups and sometimes turn the situation around so that we could see things differently. She inspired us all. It was hard to adjourn and move to different schools. It was like grief in a way.
Inspiring story about your teacher, Saskia, yes? And I hope you don't mind me asking you this, Greta, but did you get bullied in school?
I think some students have tried, but I don't respond well. I just think they're unhappy people. I remember a girl that was being bullied at school. Saskia would employ the 5-track approach, which is a great way of understanding why someone bullies. After all, they need help too. Sometimes the victims need to toughen up and refuse to be bullied though.
Yes, and I'm sure the audience and you would agree with me today that the media perception of adolescence isn't very good. But I'm sure you're bucking the trend. Don't most treat school as an evil to undergo? Take drugs, take risks? Are not the young of today Tinder swiping, hedonistic, post-millennial never-doers?
Yes, they tyrannise their teachers, love luxury, have bad manners and contempt for authority. The years between 11 to 25, or in some cases 40, can be split into early, mid and late adolescent. I'm in the middle. You can blame the youth for what you see as insurrection, but that doesn't help. We've been doing that for a millennia. Adolescents are wired differently. You are wired differently when you are going through puberty. There's a lot going on. We're writing our own identity, our cognitive development is developing as fast as a baby's, and we don't blame a baby for being a baby. We should stop blaming teenagers for being teenagers. Your brain is taking shape. Quite literally, it's changing its shape. That affects how an adolescent thinks and feels. It more than influences behaviour, it governs it. For example, why do teenagers hang out in groups, wear hoodies or talk differently than their elders? They need space to become themselves. They need to find out what is and isn't acceptable among their peers. They are in the process of adapting to unique environments, finding out who they are. Maybe it's just best to give them the space and that they need and stop telling them to cut their hair or pull their trousers up.
It's very mature and it's a very logical thing to say. Thank you for the wonderful insights into your way of thinking. At this point of the show, we would like to put our attention to the viewers. We have a tweet which has come in from the Netherlands, from a young lady called Bess Joran. She says, I think it's great what Greta is doing, but with all the days she's missed from school and with her on strike, going to places all over Europe, is she missing out on school education and being academically challenged? It's a great question, Bess. Greta, would you like to comment?
Yes, I would. Travelling all over Europe has given me life experiences that I will never forget. I am seeing more of the world and spreading the truth about climate change in a way I could never have imagined. I continue to stay in contact with my teachers about homework so I can continue learning while I influence the world on the dangers people are putting our world in.
Yes, excellent reply, Greta. And Bess, I hope we've answered your question. I'm thrilled we took a question from the audience about learning, because it moves me on to my next topic show, which is about the Russian psychologist called Vygotsky, who developed the theory of learning. Vygotsky states that there are 3 stages that will describe a student's learning abilities. The zone of actual development is what the student is already capable of doing. The zone of proximal development is the student the proximal development is the student's ideal zone. That's where we want the student to be. And the last zone is the panic zone, where the teacher is actually asking too much of the student, so the student becomes lost and doesn't understand. And I think it's clear to see from Greta's last tweet response that she is in the zone of proximal development, as surely her experience to date, trying to convince the world to change, is an uphill task, one that Greta isn't shying away from. Your teacher's behaviour, as you mentioned earlier, has helped you reach this proximal stage using group processes to develop your classroom. Do you agree with the zone that you're in, Greta? And do you have any last words for the viewers at home?
Well, from a learning perspective, yes. But in the real world, everybody should be in the panic zone.
Yes. The world is coming to an end, isn't it? But that won't be for a long time, right?
How long do you think long actually is? Is it 100 years?
Well, it's not as if there's a date. I mean, the world has always been here. My life will be over in less than 100 years.
It's 12.
12?
12 years. If we don't do something now to reverse the changes and make change, then all of our days are numbered. The human race burnt 100 million barrels of oil today. It was 100 million barrels yesterday, and it will be 100 million barrels tomorrow. 200 species were wiped out today, and every day is the same. Our activities have led to the largest extinction event in history. Ecosystems are polluted at every level with plastic, and our oceans are dying quickly. Why isn't everybody panicking? Why aren't you panicking?
Well, I am panicking. But indeed, that is a question what everyone should be asking themselves, is why aren't you panicking? And that's the question we will leave you with today, unfortunately, because that's all we have time for left on the show. A huge thank you to Greta. Thank you for coming on the show and letting us pick your brain, and for joining us and giving us a tremendous insight into your adolescence. Thank you to all our listeners at home for tuning in as well. Until next time from us all, here at Behind the Headlines, goodbye, and let's save the planet.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So look. Yeah!
There you go.
Yeah. Nice. Still got 5 minutes left. Have a look at that.
Perfect.
Fucking sorted.
Perfect.